We choose to go to the moon. Not because they are easy.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
But because they are hard.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hi, welcome to We Choose to Go to Kennedy, the official podcast of Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, where we talk all things past, present, and future of American spaceflight from the very place it started. I'm your host, Jenna.
And I'm Russell. We're with the communications department here at the Visitor Complex.
And I'm going to cut to the point. It's Florida. It's getting cold. We're in the low 70s, and I think there's
we're starting with jokes?
I'm serious. I'm wearing 3 layers here, and I am so excited. There's no better way to get cozy and get festive than what we have planned for the holiday season.
That's true. The weather for Florida has gotten cooler, which is nice. You know, sunny afternoons, but also a little bit of cool in the air. And we're getting ready. You're right. So Thanksgiving, as we record this, is right around the corner. So we're very excited about that. So tell me, Thanksgiving traditions in your house.
All right.
What do you have?
Well, I come from a large Filipino family, so it's never just a one-day event. It is always a 3-day event, pretty much. It takes all day to cook. The whole family comes over. We alternate houses just to balance out, the work. But a big thing for us is kind of, again, spending the entire day cooking together. I am the charcuterie board expert in the family. So give me cured meats, give me cheeses, artisanal cheeses. Like, I will make that board, and I will spend hours on that while they're doing the real hard work over with the turkey.
There it is.
What about you? What do you got planned?
Family time is always important. We sometimes still do watch the parades that are on TV, and a lot of times you'll have a lot of NASA balloons or astronauts that are taking part in those parades, and that's always fun to see. And then here at the Visitor Complex, if you come out now, we're already getting ready for the rest of the holidays, the Hanukkah, the Christmas, the Kwanzaa, and our decoration team has been in full go mode.
Absolutely.
The last week or so.
Yeah, they've already started rolling out the decorations. This is my first day here while they're doing the decorations, so right after this, I'm for sure going to swing out in the park and see what they got planned, but I am so excited.
It takes a long time to put up all the trees, all the decorations, everything. The nutcrackers that are so famous around here. So they come in the middle of the night, like ninjas, and
like
then they throw, like Santa, that's probably better, like Santa and the elves, and they decorate a little bit, and they go to sleep during the daytime, and then next night they kind of add more to it. So we're excited about it. The music's going to start changing. The music in the park is going to kind of switch over at some point soon to have the holiday music, and so we're super excited about that as well.
Yeah, and as the decorations start rolling out, we still have some fun festivities planned, especially this episode. Like I mentioned, it's getting cooler. No better way to stay warm and cozy than talking about food. Thanksgiving food. We have such exciting guests. Russ got to talk to Joan Higginbotham, one of the astronauts from the shuttle era.
Yeah, Joan, retired NASA astronaut. Amazing story. Flew on the shuttle, and talks to us a little bit about how she didn't grow up wanting to be an astronaut, which is a little bit kind of unusual. She wanted to be an electrical engineer, which I think she actually is because, of course, astronauts are always high achievers. But she tells a story about how she always said yes to opportunities when they weren't always necessarily something she was looking for, and it led her to be on the launch pad, taking off into space. And she's a wonderful person, and it was fun to talk with her. And we had ice cream together. So I'll just tell you that right now. We had ice cream together.
On the same note of unique careers,
Sure.
We are talking to a NASA food scientist today, telling us a little bit about the meals she cooks, how she plans things, how she kind of builds the perfect nutrition plan for the astronauts. And I'm really excited to see what she's been working on.
Yeah, she's amazing as well. Worked for NASA for 3 decades. And while there are very few people who will ever go into space, we all eat, and she kind of mixed both of those worlds and made sure that the astronauts had good tasting food, but also the food that they needed to do the work they needed to do when they're in space. And so she's kind of one of those heroes that we don't always hear about, but we're excited to have your conversation with her today.
Absolutely. Let's jump into it.
Let's do it. So we are with retired NASA astronaut Joan Higginbotham, who flew on Space Shuttle Discovery in 2006. Now, Joan is here right now as we're speaking at the visitor complex as our astronaut of the day. Joan, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here again. It seems like we were just together.
Yes, we've been able to travel together and tell Joan's story, but we wanted to tell it here on the podcast as well. So you are here this week. We're recording in October,
Yes.
just so everybody's aware. But you're here this week for as astronaut of the day.
Yes.
And it's been a while since you've been here for that, so we're excited to have you here.
Thank you.
How has it been so far during the week?
It has been great. This is day 2, so I'm day 2 of 4.
Right.
So about halfway done. It's been wonderful. Yesterday we had the Chat with an Astronaut, where we are today. I was able to do a presentation in the Universal Theater, and it was really great audiences, and really enthusiastic people came for the autograph session. So we were full up yesterday. It was a good day.
So one of the things that everybody should know, if they don't, is that whenever a visitor comes here to the visitor complex, there's an astronaut here.
Yeah.
If it's Joan or somebody else, there's an astronaut who can tell their story, who you can ask questions of, you can have a conversation with, get an autograph, potentially a photo, and just kind of hear and be inspired. It's great for people like me who get inspired by your story, but it's great for kids, children who are looking to kind of believe in themselves and look at the challenges. So real quick, your story, and it's an amazing story, but in like a couple of minutes, how did you go from growing up in Chicago to on the launch pad here at Kennedy Space Center, going into outer space and helping build the International Space Station?
Right. So I say I was the reluctant astronaut, because if you ask most of my colleagues, they can tell you about the moon landing and where they were, and that was the impetus for them wanting to be an astronaut. I think I was outside skipping rope or something. I don't know what happened when the men landed on the moon. I was kind of clueless. And I kind of fell into this role. I was a senior in high school, senior in college, about to graduate, thought I was going to work for IBM. I had interned with them when I get a call from a gentleman at the Kennedy Space Center saying, "Hey, do you want to come to Florida and launch space shuttles?" I'm thinking, not so much, right? First of all, I'm thinking, I did not call you. How did you get my number? And he talked about it. And this was 1987, so a year after Challenger. So I was a little apprehensive. I got to fly down here. I saw the space shuttle. I saw the launch pad. And I'm like, I'll give it 5 years. And I ended up staying 20. And in that period, I was here about 7 years. And one of my mentors said, you make a great astronaut. I was like, that's not going to happen. But he really convinced me to put in my application. I applied. I got an interview. I was not selected. Then I was upset.
Oh, now you're like, this is a challenge.
Exactly.
I gotta get
now
this
I was like,
now.
excuse me, but you. So I went back, I got more education, went through the process again, and was selected the second time around. So that, in a nutshell, is a story about perseverance.
Yeah.
It's a story about taking advantage of opportunities that come your way. Because everything that I planned for my career didn't happen, except for the electrical engineering piece. Everything else was opportunity. Yeah. So that's the story of how I came to be.
And then when you launched, it was December of 2006.
Yes.
You went to space and you helped. The International Space Station at that time was still being it was up and running, but it was still being constructed, parts of it, right? Is that correct?
We were roughly halfway through the construction, because we didn't finish it till 2011. Literally, we were at the halfway mark when I went up. So we took up another piece of the hardware to continue building it, moved one of the solar arrays around, took up about 6,000 pounds of equipment, and we did a crew transfer. And I always joke because, Sonny Williams and Butch have been the stranded, in quotes, folks, stranded astronauts. So we took Sonny up on my first mission, and I say we left her there intentionally. That was intentional.
She was supposed to be dropped off.
She was supposed to be dropped off, and we brought back home Thomas Ryder from ESA.
Understood.
Yeah.
So, when a lot of people, when they ask, questions about astronauts, they have somebody, a chance to talk to you. You get the question about, how do you just kind of live life up there? Because that's something we can relate to. I can't necessarily relate to being an electrical engineer or doing the science and the experiments, but I can understand, hey, I got to brush my teeth. I got to, do laundry. I have to eat. So what was this is December, so this is the holidays around, between Thanksgiving and Hanukkah and Christmas and Kwanzaa. So what was it like? Was there food different there because it was holiday? What's the food like in space for you on that mission?
And so we didn't have like holiday meals. Now on station, they get special Thanksgiving meals and all that kind of stuff. But we did have a special meal that was prepared for us by Rachel Ray.
The chef, the famous chef.
The celebrity chef. And so she prepared some Swedish meatballs. I'd have to say it's probably because of Krister, who is a Swedish astronaut. And she also had some curried vegetables. But the funny story about that is that we went to get the food. The guys opened the packages and stuff. I went to go get my utensil because everyone has their own utensils. And by the time I got back, the food was gone. So I didn't even get to taste any of it.
They all ate the food so fast.
The guys ate the food.
And then eating fast. I never would have thought that.
Yeah, right? I was like, what is this? I'm back at home and I have to fight for my food?
So I have some props.
All right.
So this is not NASA, but this is sort of what a package would look like for the food.
Yep.
So this is kind of what it comes in. It's usually dehydrated.
Yes.
Right? It tastes good, but it's a little dehydrated.
It's good. It is actually good. Yeah.
And your favorite is
beef enchiladas.
Beef enchiladas. Okay.
Did you bring me some beef enchiladas?
I did not. I brought you something else we're going to get to in a second. And so this is important because when you do chat with an astronaut, if it's in the morning, you get your breakfast as you hear a Joan story or another astronaut story, or in the afternoon, it'll be like a lunch item that you can have with Joan. So Chat with an Astronaut is here, and then obviously the Astronaut Encounter is like kind of a larger room that we have, Universe Theater. And so when people, what is your presentation like at Universe Theater for the Astronaut Encounter?
So I started by talking about my career, which started 3 miles down the road. I tell them how special this place is to me because it's kind of where I grew up as a young engineer. And then I talk about my journey, just show some highlights. There's a 2-minute sizzle reel is what I call it. It's basically 13 days in space, my mission condensed into 2 minutes. It's like all the cool stuff, right?
I've seen it, guys, and it's good.
And then I finish up with kind of my philosophy and what I took away from that space mission.
Sure. Okay, so it's time for the dessert of this conversation. So I do have a surprise for Joan. You mentioned at one point that one of the items that we sell here at the Visitor Complex is obviously the space ice cream. And you've tried space ice cream. Now, this is not necessarily the kind of the ice cream you get in space, but this is kind of like the brand that people like us you and me can eat. So, but you hadn't had the mint chocolate chip, right?
Correct, and that's my favorite ice cream.
So here it is. We have space freeze-dried ice cream sandwich, mint chocolate chip for Joan. So this is for you. I'm going to open it up.
Okay.
Are you going to taste test
I
it
will.
here?
I will taste test it here.
All right.
You shouldn't have, Russ. That's so sweet.
So I'm going to let you take it from there. Look at this.
Oh,
All right.
it's an ice cream sandwich.
It's an ice cream sandwich.
All right.
Yep. And it has the green on it because it's mint.
Eating
right?
in public. Oh, yes.
Yeah, let's just see on camera what could go wrong.
That's a good
I mean,
thing.
you've eaten in
Right.
space, and you handled that well. So let's have some eating. So you're doing a taste test of our freeze-dried ice cream. What's it like? Don't be too honest if it's bad.
Actually, it's
It
not
melts
bad.
in your mouth. It's good.
Yeah,
It's really
I mean,
good.
it really tastes like mint.
It does.
Okay.
So there you
I'm
go.
impressed.
So that's you can have that. That's yours to keep.
The breakfast of champions.
Seriously, Joan Higginbotham, thank you for what you've done for space exploration, for being a mentor and a leader, and for joining us today. So it's exciting to have you here, and so we're very proud to call you an astronaut who hangs out with us.
It was an honor for me to be here, and thank you for my breakfast. I appreciate that.
So joining us today, we have former NASA food scientist Vickie Kloeris. Vickie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome.
So when people think NASA, the first thing they think is astronaut, engineer, but a lot of people don't know that there's so many other career choices that we have, to offer. And of course, you have such a unique one as a food scientist. Can you tell me a little bit about your story, how you ran into this niche and what you do?
Well, it's interesting. I grew up in Texas, went to Texas A&M University, really thought I love science, really thought I was going to go into pre-med. And I joined the pre-med society and started attending the lectures from doctors and medical students. And I kind of realized I didn't have the passion I was going to need to make it through residency and all that. And so I was very interested in microbiology and so declared that as my major. Really thought that I would go into clinical microbiology. But when I got ready to register for my last semester at A&M, I was 1 hour short of a micro elective. And on the list was a course in food microbiology. But it was over in the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences because it was in the food science department. And so my advisor tried to talk me out of it. You know, you only need 1 hour. Why do you want to do a 4-hour course with a lab? I'm like, no, I'm interested. So I went over and got very interested in the application of micro to the processing and preservation of food. And so got my master's in food science and got my first job in Houston. And I had joined, while I was in college, I had joined the Institute of Food Technologists, which is the IFT for short. It's the professional org for food science. And it's headquartered out of Chicago. And I mainly joined to get a cheaper hotel room at the first conference I went to. But when I got my job in Houston, I started attending meetings of the local IFT. And they had a local section there. And I met some of the food scientists who were working at NASA. Even though I grew up within 30 minutes of NASA, never really made a connection between food science and NASA. And I thought that has got to be the coolest job a food scientist could have. So if you guys ever have an opening, call me. And about 2 years later, they did. Not looking for me. They were just like, do you know somebody who would be interested? And I'm like, yeah, that would be me. And so I went and interviewed and went to work as a contractor. And literally that was 40 years ago. Spent 4 years as a contractor. And then the woman who was managing the shuttle food system unfortunately got cancer and passed away. And I transitioned over and became the manager of the shuttle food system. And so managed, as a civil servant, managed the shuttle food system and then the ISS before I retired. Yeah.
That's incredible. It's insane that only one, course hour that you needed kind of shaped your entire career.
Yeah.
And that is such an amazing tenure. I'm not too familiar with how the food science systems work and preparing that for the shuttle, for the ISS. What did a typical day look like for you at work?
So when I was a contractor, of course, I was doing more hands-on stuff in the lab. And so in Houston, they have freeze dryers. And so a lot of the actual food production there is related to freeze drying because they prepare the food and freeze dry it. And then there's a big packaging facility there. So they're packaging freeze-dried foods after they process them, but then they're also packaging all of the commercial off-the-shelf items that NASA uses, things like cookies, crackers, nuts, powdered beverages, all those kinds of things NASA just buys and has to repackage them to send them to orbit for the crew members to use in microgravity. So they have special packaging equipment, and you have to have, for the beverages and the freeze-dried, the products that you're going to add water to, they have a special adapter that they seal in the package so that it will interface with the needle on the galley on orbit and allow them to inject the water into the package.
It's very cool.
So it's mainly a freeze-drying operation and a packaging operation there, and it's a huge PR operation. Mm-hmm. I mean, whenever they bring I can't count the number of tours during my career that I did. And whenever they would bring VIPs to the center, they often would bring them to the food lab for a space food luncheon. So we were a showcase in a way because people can, they can relate to food maybe easier than they can relate to orbital dynamics or something like that. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, it's always been a dream of mine to tour, a NASA food science, stuff like that. So maybe one day I will. So one of the questions that we always love to ask our astronauts when we have them on the podcast is, what is their favorite space food? But I want to know, what was the most popular one that you had developed, and what was your favorite one to develop?
Okay. So I didn't develop this one, but historically because it was already there when I got there, historically, one of the most popular is the freeze-dried shrimp cocktail.
Of course.
So yeah, it's freeze-dried shrimp and it's got a tomato-based powdered sauce, but it's got a horseradish in the sauce. So it has a nice little kick. And so, especially on shuttle, that was extremely popular because when they first go into orbit, all the fluid shifts to the upper part of their body and they're very congested, very puffy faced and congested. And so it's like when you and I have a cold, things taste different because we're not getting the aroma through the back of the nose. And so the horseradish in the shrimp cocktail was, it could cut through that. And so that was extremely popular. And it's still popular on space station as well. But congestion is not quite as much of an issue when they're up there for a long time because over time the excess fluid goes away. Their body gets rid of the excess. So they're not as congested, fluffy faced.
There's so much that goes into space travel. There's so many little things that you don't obviously think of on the top of your head, but adjusting to those conditions.
Right.
Obviously, that's all thanks to you being able to develop, these different menu items, kind of bring a little bit of home from down on Earth back to space. For you in particular, what is your favorite thing that either you developed or your favorite thing? Have you tried any of the foods?
So I went to work there in 1985 as a contractor. And I was actually hired to design the frozen food system for Space Station Freedom, which was going to be a U.S. only station. Well, that never happened because they quickly realized they were never going to have the funding to do a space station on their own. And so it morphed into the International Space Station. And we were working on frozen food, what kind of packaging we would have for the frozen food. We were working with engineers on what kind of microwave we would need to reheat the frozen food. And then the engineers started looking at how much power they were going to get from the solar arrays. And they said, well, you can either have freezers for science or you can have freezers for food. And so we were back to no freezers for food, back to all shelf stable. And at that point, we knew we had to start making custom freeze-dried and custom thermostabilized foods because we were using MREs from the military, the pouched entrees, and we were using camping food like you buy at REI and stuff. And those are really, really, really high in salt. Now, the military has very good reason to have that salt in there because when they're in the desert, they sweat all that out. They lose the electrolytes, so they need it. But for people who go into microgravity and are going to be there for a long period of time, it's a big negative because you start losing bone mass and muscle mass when you go into microgravity, which is why they have to exercise so much on orbit. But high sodium makes that bone loss worse. And so at that point, we started with the thermostabilized and said, we've got to make our own. Not that they were sodium free or, just lower than the MREs, because the MREs were so high in salt. So we actually started with desserts because at that point we did not have any desserts that could be warmed up. All we had was like M&Ms and, commercial cookies, stuff like that. And we said, man, if I'm going to be in orbit for 6 months or 3 months or whatever, I'm going to want a dessert that I can warm up. So that's actually where we started, was with some thermostabilized desserts, even though they weren't maybe the healthiest items we could have chosen. But from a psychological view, we knew they were going to be pretty important for crew members that were on orbit for a long time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that is so cool. I'm so glad that you guys are able to develop something like that. And I mean, you've been doing this for decades now. Can you tell me your favorite story throughout your entire time of working at NASA?
Oh, good grief. That's really hard. One of my favorites would be when they were filming Apollo 13. So they sent a team to tour and look for where filming sites, where they wanted to film on site. Well, they brought them to the food lab for a breakfast. So we did a lot of space food luncheons because they would bring VIPs to the center and, have us do luncheons. But breakfast this time, and it was Tom Hanks and Ron Howard. And Ron Howard had his wife and one of his daughters with him. She was quite small then. And Jim Lovell was also there, because he wrote the book that the movie was based on. And so I can vividly remember Tom Hanks coming in, putting his tennis shoe up on the table and pointing out that he was wearing his Forrest Gump tennis shoes.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And Jim Lovell sat across the table from two of the current astronauts at the time, and they had their blue flight suits on like they always do. And he's sitting there eating, and we never ate with them. We briefed them, while they were eating, because we were serving them flight food and stuff. And he's like, "Oh, this is really good." And they're looking at him like he's nuts, but it had improved so much from what he had during Apollo that he was impressed, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a great endorsement coming from Tom Hanks. That is so cool. Well, great. So obviously we're coming up on Thanksgiving. As a food scientist, I want to know, what was it like? Did you prepare food for the astronauts in space, Thanksgiving style?
So we had items in our menu so we had a sliced turkey in the menu. So there was turkey available. And we had, some of the traditional items that were part of the menu. And so what would happen typically, well, this applies more to ISS. On ISS, if a crew was going to be there during the holidays, then each crew member gets a certain amount of preference containers to take with them, because the core menu is the standard menu on ISS, but it's packed pantry style. So like all the meats are together, all the vegetables are together. There's 9 different categories. And so even though the menu is standard, they're not eating per that menu. When they get ready to eat, they go to those 9 containers. They select what they want for that meal. So, but they get to augment that standard menu with a more limited number of preference containers that will have their name on them. So if a crew member was going to be there during the holidays, typically they would devote one of their preference containers to being the holiday meal for the whole crew. And they would design the meal, pick the items that they wanted to serve from our menu. And then there would also be like some traditional things like cranberry sauce and stuff that we could send that weren't typically a part of the menu, but it would be part of that preference container for the holidays. And so that's typically the way it would work. They would dedicate a container for the holiday. And or if somebody's birthday was going to be they would sometimes do a special meal and dedicate a container and plan a meal for somebody's birthday if they knew they were going to have a birthday. And every holiday, they celebrated, our Christmas, they celebrated European Christmas, any excuse for a party.
Exactly. That is so much fun. You have such amazing stories that you're sharing with us today. I really appreciate you coming on and joining us today.
Sure.
And again, just thank you so much for sharing, your incredible career and kind of giving us a different perspective and kind of what NASA does.
Okay. Well, just to make a plug for myself, I wrote a book about my career. It's called Space Bites, Reflections of a NASA Food Scientist. And it's available from ballastbooks.com. That's the publisher. And all of my proceeds are going to food science scholarships. So,
awesome. Great.
And it talks about the food system, but it also has a lot of anecdotes from my career as well.
Absolutely. More of an inside look into, your field, your personal story. And again, thank you so much for joining us today, Vickie.
Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
That was fascinating. Vickie has such a interesting and unique career, and, her love of food really had an impact on space exploration and the development of NASA across the board with our astronauts. That was great to have you talk with her.
Absolutely. The way that she prepares these meals and all of the science and all of the, work that goes into it. I'm not going to prepare anything that intricate for Thanksgiving. Might burn the kitchen down, but I am so glad I got to talk with her. She has, again, like you said, she has such a unique career, and she was such a pleasure to talk to.
And of course, in early 2026, we have astronauts going back up in Artemis 2, going to go around the moon. So they're probably working on their menus right now. We're not done with 2025 yet. And for people who may or may not know, there were 93 launches last year on the Space Coast, which was a record.
Yeah.
Broke the record that was set, I think, the previous year in 2023. And we set another record already in 2025. And we're right on the cusp. We're going to do 100 launches plus this year.
Yeah.
And so it seems like every year it's going to be a new record.
Yeah. While we're filming this right now, we're at 98. We are nearly at 100.
That's right.
It is insane how much the industry has changed, how before rocket launches, weren't as frequent, but now it's something that we can do every single day. The, industry is growing, and I'm really excited to see what we have in store for 2026.
It's going to be exciting. Not just Artemis, but everything that's going to come with it on the launch pads along the range line. So it's going to be fun. Also fun. In December, we do have a little bit of an announcement. So the people who have stuck with us through the rest of the podcast, you're getting some of this information maybe before your neighbors. We have a new live show coming to Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, correct?
Correct. We have the Fraggle Rocks coming. I'm so excited. They hold such a dear place in my heart. And I'm very excited to see, the first look at the show coming up in a couple weeks now. The
new Fraggle Rock is coming to the Visitor Complex. Twice a day once they start in Universe Theater. The first shows are going to be December 22nd. So families or just adults who like Fraggle want to live, a little reminisce from their childhood, you can come see it. More information is going to be on our website, going to be out on social media, going to be in the news. But yes, Fraggle Rock, new show in end of 2025 and then going all through 2026 and beyond. So it's going to be exciting.
Definitely. It's going to be such an engaging show for kids and their families. It's going to be so much fun. Good way to end off the 2025 year and start off the 2026 year.
And on our next episode, we're going to talk all about Holidays in Space 2025. And as Jenna, we talked about that a little bit earlier in the show when we were kind of describing the holiday decorations that have been going up. So those aren't just for show, they're for fun. And this edition of Holidays in Space is going to be a little bit different, new things, and we're really excited about it.
Absolutely. And like I say in almost every episode, I'm a newcomer. So this is my first time seeing Holidays in Space. I'm so excited. I'm excited for myself to get a sneak peek and for you guys to get a peek into what we have planned for this holiday season.
Well, we're going to show Jenna around for Holidays in Space, and then we're going to come back and record a podcast about it. Until then, have a great one.
Thank you so much.
We choose to go to the moon. Not because they are easy,
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
but because they are hard.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.